It's my honor, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Griffin Trust, to announce the recipient of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award in Poetry. We had the thought that having some of the great poets of the world come across the stage to honor these writers at different stages in the development of their lives as artists would honor this day. Some of the poets who've been here in past years have included the Canadian Robin Blazer, the Irish poet Seamus Heaney, Swedish poet Thomas Tranströmer, American poet Adrian Rich, Korean poet Ko Un, German poet Hans Magnus Enzensberger. This year, our award for Lifetime Achievement in Poetry goes to the great Brazilian poet Adélia Prado. She'll be coming up to receive in a moment. Let me say a word about her. She was born in the industrial city of Giovanópolis in the state of Minas Gerais. Did I get the pronunciation reasonably right? Her brilliant translator, Doré Watson, has described this country as a landlocked Brazilian state of rugged mountains, mines, and Baroque churches. Her family were laborers. Her father and her grandfather worked on the railroad. She came, as she says in her poems, from a family in which the women, very often, her mother and her grandmother, died in childbirth. She was the first person in her family to go to college. She took degrees in philosophy and religious education. She wrote of herself in the 1980s, "I'm a simple person, a common housewife, a practicing Catholic." She is the author of 8 volumes of poetry, 7 of prose. 10 years ago, Carolyn Forche described her as one of the major voices of the Americas. When her first book of poems was published, the great Brazilian modernist poet Carlos Drummond de Andrade wrote in the newspaper, St. Francis of Assisi is dictating poems to a young woman in Minas Gerais. The Russian-American poet Ilya Kaminsky had said of her that she would remind you of Emily Dickinson if she didn't keep reminding you of Walt Whitman. She's a theological and devotional poet who can make you think that William Blake had been studying Pablo Neruda. She knows what the devil is. She knows that it's thinking the ordinary is ordinary. She knows that it's when the middle of the night anxiety or self-loathing make you not wonder that you exist. Her poetry goes there all the time. She knows what's divine in socks and roads and chicken coops. She, for me, has the experience of altering your vision in the way that intense listening to music or looking at art in a museum does. So you come out and for hours or days you see the world slightly differently. Her poems have been translated into English in 2 volumes by the American poet Doré Watson, who joined us tonight, whose fresh, pungent, and vivid translations of her work are said to be as lively as her Portuguese is to her original readers. It's not impossible to convey the depth and intensity, the humor, naturalness, earthiness, craziness of her voice in this space, but let me give you a quick taste. This is from a poem called Denouement. Of my entire family, I'm the only one who has seen the ocean. I describe it over and over. They say, huh, and continue circling the chicken coop with wire. I tell them about sea foam and the wearisome size of the waters. They don't remember there's such a place as Kenya. They'd never guess I'm thinking of Tanzania. Eagerly, they show me the lot. This is where the kitchen will be. That's where we'll put the garden. going to skip ahead. Night, make yourself useful and cover me with sleep. Me and the thought of death just can't get used to each other. I'll tremble with fear until the end. And meanwhile, everything is so small. Compared to the desires of my heart, the ocean is a drop of water. The poems, as they get later, at least in my reading across these two extraordinary volumes in Ellen's translation, are like the work of the great devotional poets, Emily Dickinson being one, John of the Cross another, John Donne, and spiritual exercise. Mary, pray your Son to show me God the Father. Images arrive. A man, a vignette, a musical instrument, what seems a feather fan turns out to be a cobra head. I want to see the Father. I insist. Pray your Son to show me the Father. A tooth, a vulva, a bunch of turnips appear. Born as I was from nothing. Mary, where do turnips come from? Where is the Father? Where do I come from? A horse of the sun moves on the wall. Is it the Father? No, it's just a shadow already disappearing. Is the Father a factory then? My father used to say, "Oh, Father," and raise his arms reverently. Grandpa too, "God, our Father," and he'd take off his hat. So one father leads back to another and another and yet another, and then millions of fathers later, at last to Adam, who is me, waking from a dream. Just when, as the poets say, dawn shone through blood red and cool, which so enchanted me when I was a girl, daughter of a railroad man, as exhausted now as a greengrocer at noontime. Ah, Father, help me hawk the rest of these squashes. Drum the idea of seeing Father God out of my head. Give me a smoke and some coffee. So, as you can see, Brazil has produced what would seem impossible, a really sexy, mystical Catholic poet. One more short poem. It's called Human, to give you a sense of her art, and maybe a gift to all of us who try to do this art. I know God lives in me. This is called Human Rights. I know God lives in me as in no other house. I am his countryside, his alchemical vessel, and to his joy, his two eyes. But the handwriting is mine. Please welcome to Toronto the great Adélia Prado and Ellen Doré Watson, her translator.
Hoje quero celebrar, porque prêmio destinado a poetas mostra que ainda há caminhos possíveis de alegria e humanização para este nosso mundo.
Today, I want to celebrate because a prize for poets shows that there are still possible paths to joy and humanization in our world.
Agradeço a tudo, a todos, e sei que não erro quando afirmo que a poesia, a mais ínfima, é serva da esperança.
Thank you for everything. Thank you, everyone. And I know I make no mistake when I say that a poem, even the smallest of poems, is the servant of hope.
Fiquei tão feliz, e graças a Deus e ao meu marido Zé, eu tive coragem de entrar no avião, sair do Brasil para estar aqui no Canadá, num lugar tão longe.
I am so happy that thanks to God and to my husband Zay, that I had the courage to get on a plane, leave Brazil, and come to Canada.
Muito obrigada. Thank you. Thank you. Merci. Obrigada. Vamos abraçar de novo. Aí eu posso mostrar para vocês.